The night Josephine Vance arrived in Coyote Creek, Arizona Territory, 1883, the town was ablaze with scandal and whiskey. A beautiful woman traveling alone was rare enough in these parts, but one with determination blazing in her eyes and a mysterious past trailing behind her like dust was the kind of trouble that made men take notice. "Madam, your room's upstairs," the innkeeper mumbled, passing her a heavy iron key. "Can't promise it's the quietest spot, what with the saloon next door." Josephine clutched her small valise tighter. "Peace and quiet isn't what brought me to Coyote Creek, sir." Her emerald eyes scanned the room, taking in the rough-hewn tables where men drank and played cards. No one here knew who she was or what she'd escaped. That was precisely how she wanted it. 6 months ago, she had been Josephine Ellsworth, the pampered daughter of a wealthy cattle baron in Texas. Now she was just Josephine Vance, a widow according to the papers she'd forged, seeking a new life far from the nightmare that had consumed her old one. The nightmare had a name: Harold Ellsworth, her father's business partner. The man who'd tried to force her to marry him after her father's death, claiming ownership of everything including her. Josephine ascended the narrow staircase to her room, her muscles aching from 3 days on the stagecoach. The room was sparse: a bed with a sagging mattress, a washstand with a cracked mirror, and a small window overlooking the main street. But it was hers, paid for with money she'd sewn into her skirts before fleeing. She unpinned her hat, releasing a cascade of auburn curls. The mirror reflected a face she sometimes didn't recognize, thinner now, with shadows beneath her eyes, but stronger too. The scar hidden beneath her high-collared dress tingled as it always did when she thought about that night. The night they'd held her down and branded her like property. "You belong to the Ellsworth Ranch now," Harold had said as the iron descended. "And soon to me." Josephine shuddered at the memory, forcing it away. She was safe now, hundreds of miles from Texas. No one would find her here. She was wrong. The following morning, Josephine set out to find work. Coyote Creek was smaller than she'd imagined, a dusty collection of wooden buildings straddling the stagecoach route between Tucson and Prescott. The town had one main street with a general store, saloon, blacksmith, and a small hotel where she was staying. The general store owner needed no help. The hotel had its staff. The schoolhouse already had a teacher. By midday, Josephine's hopes were dimming as quickly as her funds would. She paused outside the Silver Spur Saloon, hearing piano music drift through the swinging doors. A sign in the window read, "Girl wanted for serving drinks." "Inquire within." Josephine squared her shoulders. She'd never worked in a saloon, but she needed money to survive. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the doors. The piano player faltered as she entered. Several cowboys turned to stare. A tall man behind the bar raised an eyebrow. "We don't usually get ladies in here till after sundown," he said, wiping a glass. "I'm here about the position," Josephine replied, her voice steadier than her nerves. The barkeep looked her over. "Ever served drinks before?" "No, but I learn quickly," he chuckled. "I bet you do." "Name's Mitchell. I own this establishment. Josephine Vance." "Well, Mrs. Vance, miss," she corrected, maintaining her widow's story. "Miss Vance. Job pays $2 a week plus whatever tips the gents provide. Hours are noon till midnight." "No funny business upstairs. This ain't that kind of place." Josephine nodded. "When do I start?" "Right now, if you're willing. Got a spare apron in the back." By evening, Josephine's feet ached and her arms felt like lead from carrying trays of drinks, but she'd earned more in tips than she'd expected. The men of Coyote Creek were generous with their coins if a woman smiled and remembered their names. She was serving a table of minors when the saloon doors swung open. The piano player stopped mid-song and a hush fell over the room. A man stood in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by a well-worn Stetson. Dust coated his long coat and silver spurs clinked with each step as he approached the bar. He removed his hat, revealing sun-bronzed features and eyes the color of a summer storm. "Logan," Mitchell greeted him, "thought you were still up at the North Fork." "Finished early," the man answered, his voice deep and rough like stone against leather. Josephine couldn't help staring. There was something compelling about him, not just his handsome features, but the quiet confidence he carried. "New girl?" Logan asked, nodding in Josephine's direction. "Just started today," Mitchell replied. "Miss Vance, this here's Logan O'Malley, owns the Triple Cross Ranch north of town." Logan's eyes met hers, and Josephine felt a strange flutter in her chest. She nodded politely and returned to her duties, aware of his gaze following her. Later, as she served his table, he spoke directly to her. "You're new to Coyote Creek." It wasn't a question. Josephine set down his whiskey. "Yes." "Where from?" "Back east," she lied smoothly. Logan studied her with those penetrating eyes. "East doesn't usually prepare folks for places like this." Perhaps I was ready for a change. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Aren't we all?" Josephine moved to another table, feeling his eyes on her back. Something about Logan O'Malley unsettled her, not in the threatening way Harold had, but in a way that made her heart beat faster. She couldn't afford such distractions. Not when safety depended on anonymity. Days turned into weeks, and Josephine settled into life in Coyote Creek. Her work at the saloon was exhausting but honest. She rented a small room behind the dressmaker's shop, a step up from the hotel. Slowly, she began to believe she might truly escape her past. Logan O'Malley became a regular at the saloon, always sitting at the same corner table, always watching her with those storm cloud eyes. He rarely spoke more than a few words, but his generous tips helped Josephine save for her uncertain future. One evening, as she collected empty glasses, Logan caught her wrist gently. The touch sent a jolt through her body. "Sunday's the town social," he said. "Would you go with me?" Josephine withdrew her hand. "Mr. O'Malley, Logan," he corrected. "Logan," she repeated, the name feeling intimate on her tongue. "I'm not looking for attachments." Something like disappointment flickered across his face. "Just a dance, Miss Vance, nothing more." She wanted to say yes. The realization startled her. "I'll consider it," she finally answered. That night, Josephine dreamed of Texas, of rough hands holding her down, of white-hot pain as the brand seared her skin. She woke gasping, her nightdress soaked with sweat, the scar between her shoulder blades burning as if fresh. Dawn found her at the small creek that gave the town its name, washing her face in the cool water. The brand, a stylized E for Ellsworth, had healed months ago, but the memory remained raw, bit early for a swim. Josephine whirled around. Logan sat atop a chestnut stallion a few yards away, looking as if he'd been riding for hours. "I wasn't swimming," she replied, hastily drying her face with her sleeve. Logan dismounted in one fluid motion. "Forgive me, didn't mean to startle you." "You didn't." Another lie. He approached slowly, as one might a skittish colt. "You're running from something." Josephine stiffened. "That's presumptuous, not presumption. Recognition." His eyes held no judgment, only understanding. "Takes one to know one." "And what are you running from, Mr. O'Malley?" "War, death." "Memories," he shrugged. The usual ghosts. The honesty in his voice disarmed her. For a moment, Josephine considered telling him everything about Harold, about the branding, about her desperate flight. Instead, she turned back toward town. "The social," she said over her shoulder. "What time should I be ready?" His smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Sunday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures, perfect for the town social held in the clearing behind the church. Lanterns hung from trees, and a makeshift dance floor had been constructed of wooden planks. Everyone in Coyote Creek attended, dressed in their finest. Josephine wore her one good dress, a deep blue that brought out the green in her eyes. When Logan arrived at her door, hat in hand, wearing a clean black coat over a white shirt, she momentarily forgot how to breathe. "You look beautiful," he said simply. At the social, they danced to fiddle music under the stars. Logan moved with surprising grace for such a large man, leading her confidently through waltzes and reels. For the first time since fleeing Texas, Josephine felt something like joy. "Where did a cowboy learn to dance like this?" she asked during a break. "My mother," he replied. She insisted all her sons know how to behave in polite society. A shadow crossed his face. "Before the war, anyway, you fought?" Logan nodded. "Union cavalry, 2 years that felt like 20. They sat on a bench, watching children chase fireflies at the edge of the clearing. My ranch, Logan said, it's not much compared to some. 2,000 acres, decent water rights. Built the house myself after coming west. Josephine sensed he was trying to tell her something important. It's quiet up there, he continued. Peaceful, good place to start over. Her heart quickened. Was he suggesting what she thought? Before she could respond, a commotion erupted near the church. A rider had arrived, dusty and travel-worn. He was speaking urgently to the sheriff. Trouble? Logan asked, standing. The sheriff raised his voice. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just received word that the Prescott stage was robbed yesterday. 3 passengers killed. The bandits may be headed this way. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Logan's hand found Josephine's elbow. I'll see you home, he said. As they walked back to her room, Josephine felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. New dangers, new threats. Would she ever truly be safe? At her door, Logan hesitated. Josephine, I'm not a man for fancy words, but I find myself thinking about you, often. She looked up at him, this man who'd shown her nothing but kindness and respect. Logan, there are things about me you don't know. I know enough, he replied. The rest you can tell me when you're ready. His hand brushed her cheek, and then he was bending down, his lips meeting hers in a gentle kiss that nonetheless set her blood afire. Josephine's hands found his shoulders, steadying herself against emotions she'd thought long buried. When they parted, both breathing heavily, Logan smiled. I'll come by tomorrow, he promised, before disappearing into the darkness. Josephine touched her lips, smiling despite herself. Perhaps there could be a future here after all. Her hope lasted precisely 3 days. She was working the afternoon shift when the saloon doors burst open. A group of men entered, trail-worn, hard-faced, dangerous. The leader, a man with a silver-streaked beard, surveyed the room with cold eyes. Josephine dropped the glass she was holding. She knew those eyes. They belonged to Harold Ellsworth's foreman, Silas Tanner. She ducked behind the bar just as his gaze swept her way. Mitchell gave her a confused look. What's wrong, girl? You look like you've seen a ghost. I need to leave, she whispered. Now, Mitchell frowned but nodded toward the back door. Use the alley, everything all right. Josephine didn't answer. She slipped out the rear entrance, heart hammering. How had they found her? What should she do now? She needed to run again, gather her few possessions and catch the evening stage, but first she had to warn Logan. The thought of leaving him without explanation twisted her heart, but she couldn't risk bringing danger to his door. Josephine hurried down the alley toward the livery stable. She'd borrow a horse, ride to the Triple Cross Ranch, explain everything to Logan, and then. A rough hand clamped over her mouth from behind. Another seized her arm, twisting it painfully. Found you, Miss Josephine, Silas's voice rasped in her ear. Mr. Ellsworth's been mighty worried about his property. She struggled, but another man appeared, grabbing her legs. They dragged her behind the abandoned freight office where no one would witness what happened next. Mr. Ellsworth wants you back intact, Silas said, binding her wrists with rope. But he didn't say nothing about teaching you a lesson first. Josephine fought with all her strength, but she was no match for 3 men. They secured her to a hitching post, face down in the dirt. You still wearing our brand, girl? Silas asked, tearing the back of her dress open. He whistled. Look at that, boys, still nice and clear. But I think she needs a reminder of who she belongs to. One of the men produced a small branding iron from his saddlebag. Got it heating real nice in the campfire outside town, he said with a cruel grin. Should be ready by now. Terror froze Josephine's blood, not again. Not the burning agony, the smell of her own flesh cooking. Please, she begged. Don't do this. Should have thought about consequences before you stole Mr. Ellsworth's money and ran, Silas replied. He's offering $1,000 for your return, that's good money. I'll pay you more to let me go, she tried. Silas laughed. With what? Besides, Mr. Ellsworth would hunt us down same as he did you. Now hold still, this won't take but a minute. The man returned with the branding iron, its end glowing orange-red in the fading light. Josephine screamed into the gag they'd forced between her teeth, tears streaming down her face. Hold her good, Silas instructed. Last time she kicked something fierce. Rough hands pressed her shoulders into the dirt. She could feel the heat of the iron as it descended toward her exposed back toward the existing brand. A gunshot cracked the air. The man holding the brand yelped, dropping the iron as blood blossomed from his shoulder. "Step away from the lady," commanded a familiar voice. Logan stood at the entrance to the alley, revolver drawn, eyes cold as midwinter. "This ain't your business, mister," Silas snarled, reaching for his gun. Logan fired again, the bullet kicking up dirt at Silas's feet. "Next one goes between your eyes, now back away." The third man made a desperate lunge for his weapon. Logan's third shot caught him in the leg, dropping him howling to the ground. Silas raised his hands slowly. "You don't understand. This woman is stolen property. She belongs to Harold Ellsworth of the Double Bar Ranch in Texas." "She belongs to no one," Logan replied, his voice deadly quiet. "Untie her." Now, Silas hesitated, then bent to loosen Josephine's bonds. As soon as her hands were free, she scrambled away, clutching the torn pieces of her dress together. "Logan," she gasped, "they were going to, I saw." His eyes never left the three men. "Get behind me." Josephine moved to his side, trembling with shock and relief. Logan's free arm wrapped around her protectively. "You men have a choice," he said. "Ride out of Coyote Creek now and never return or meet the Undertaker. Decide quickly." Silas glared, hatred burning in his eyes. "Ellsworth won't stop. He paid good money for her, got papers and everything." "Then he can take it up with me," Logan replied. "I'm sure the territorial marshal would be interested in hearing how Ellsworth treats women." The wounded men were groaning, one clutching his shoulder, the other his leg. "Get your friends on their horses," Logan ordered Silas, "and deliver a message to your boss. Josephine Vance is under my protection now. Any man who comes for her will be shipped home in a pine box." Something in Logan's voice, the absolute certainty, made Silas hesitate. He looked from Logan to Josephine, then nodded curtly. "Help me with them," he said to the less injured man. Logan kept his gun trained on them as they awkwardly mounted their horses. Before riding off, Silas spat in the dirt. "This ain't over," he promised. "Yes," Logan replied. "It is." When they'd gone, Logan holstered his weapon and turned to Josephine. His face softened with concern as he removed his coat and wrapped it around her. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. The kindness in his voice broke something inside her. Josephine collapsed against his chest, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I should have told you everything. Now I've brought danger to your door." Logan held her close. "Let's get you somewhere safe, then you can tell me whatever you want." He led her to his horse and lifted her into the saddle, then mounted behind her. As they rode out of town, Josephine felt the familiar urge to run, warring with a new feeling trust. They reached the Triple Cross Ranch as night fell. The main house was modest but well built, with a wide porch and sturdy walls. Logan's foreman, an older man named Pete, took their horse without asking questions. Inside, Logan built a fire in the stone hearth while Josephine sat wrapped in a quilt. When he handed her a cup of coffee laced with whiskey, their fingers touched and something electric passed between them. "Now," he said, sitting opposite her, "tell me everything." So she did. About her father's death, Harold Ellsworth's claim on the ranch, his obsession with her. How he'd ordered her branded like cattle when she refused to marry him. "He said if I wouldn't be his wife, I'd be his property," she whispered. "When I still refused, he locked me in my room, said the ceremony would happen anyway. I escaped that night, took what money I could find, and ran." Logan listened without interruption, his face growing darker with each revelation. "And the brand?" he asked quietly. Josephine hesitated, then turned and lowered the quilt, showing him the scarred E between her shoulder blades. Logan's breath caught. Gently, so gently she barely felt it, his fingertips traced the outline of the scar. "I'll kill him," he said simply. Josephine turned back to face him. "No, I won't have more blood shed because of me. I just need to keep running." "Running isn't living, Josephine." Logan took her hands in his. "And I think you've been running long enough. What choice do I have? Ellsworth won't stop. Marry me." The words hung in the air between them. Josephine stared, certain she'd misheard. "What did you say?" "Marry me," Logan repeated, his eyes never leaving hers. "Not just for protection, though I'd die before letting anyone harm you again, but because these past weeks I've come to care for you more than I thought possible." Logan, you barely know me. I know enough, he insisted. I know you're brave and strong. I know you work hard and treat everyone with kindness. I know I want to wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. Josephine's heart hammered in her chest. And my past, the brand. Scars don't define us, Logan said. We all have them, some visible, some hidden. Mine are from Shiloh and Gettysburg. They're part of me, but they're not all of me. He moved to kneel before her, still holding her hands. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, just promise you won't run without saying goodbye. Tears blurred her vision. I promise. That night, Josephine slept in Logan's bed while he took the couch. Despite the comfort of the mattress and the safety of thick walls, she lay awake for hours, turning his proposal over in her mind. Could she truly stay, build a life here, trust not just Logan but fate itself to be kind for once? The answer came with the dawn. She found Logan on the porch, watching the sunrise paint the distant mountains gold and crimson. He turned when he heard her footsteps, uncertainty in his eyes. Yes, Josephine said before he could speak. My answer is yes. Logan's face transformed with joy. He crossed the porch in 2 strides, swept her into his arms, and kissed her with a passion that left her breathless. I'll make you happy, he promised against her lips. Every day I'll try to make you happy. You already do, she whispered. They were married 2 days later in the Coyote Creek church, with Mitchell as witness and the minister officiating. Josephine wore a cream-colored dress the dressmaker had finished overnight, and Logan wore his best suit. The ceremony was simple, the words ancient and binding. That night, as husband and wife, they came together with tender passion, learning each other's bodies as they had begun to learn each other's hearts. When Logan kissed the brand on her back, Josephine felt not shame but healing begin. You're free now, he murmured. No one will ever own you again. 1 month into their marriage, the trouble they'd been expecting finally arrived. Josephine was hanging laundry when she heard riders approaching. 5 men on horseback, led by a 6th whose expensive eastern suit seemed out of place in the Arizona dust. Harold Ellsworth. Logan emerged from the barn, rifle in hand. The ranch hands appeared as if by magic. Similarly armed, Josephine moved to her husband's side, refusing to hide. Ellsworth reined in his horse, his cold eyes fixing on her. He was, as she remembered, handsome in a cruel way, with perfectly trimmed silver hair and a tailored suit that screamed wealth and privilege. So this is where my property has been hiding, he said, his cultured voice at odds with the venom in his words. Get off my land, Ellsworth, Logan replied, his rifle aimed casually at the older man's chest. Your land, Ellsworth laughed. This miserable patch of dirt, I own half of Texas, boy. Not anymore, Josephine spoke up. Fathers will left everything to me, not you. The papers you forged won't hold up in court. Anger flashed across Ellsworth's face. You ungrateful little, watch your tongue, Logan interrupted. You're addressing my wife. Ellsworth's eyebrows rose. Wife, how touching. He turned to his men. Fetch my property, boys. None of them moved. They looked uncertainly from their boss to Logan's rifle to the ranch hands surrounding them with weapons drawn. 6 of you, Logan observed. 12 of us. Bad odds, wouldn't you say? Ellsworth's face reddened. I have the law on my side. I have papers, forged papers, Josephine interjected. And the law here isn't for sale like in Texas, Harold. The territorial marshal is a personal friend of my husband's. This was stretching the truth, but Ellsworth didn't know that. Besides, she continued, I've written to the Texas Rangers detailing your crimes. Forging my father's will, holding me prisoner, the branding. How will your business associates react to that scandal? Uncertainty flickered in Ellsworth's eyes for the first time. You're bluffing. Try me, Josephine challenged. Or ride away now, forget I exist, and we'll call it even. Your choice, Harold. Ellsworth stared at her, then at Logan, calculating his odds. Slowly, his shoulders slumped. You've changed, Josephine, he said finally. There was a time you wouldn't have dared speak to me this way. That time is gone, she replied. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Ellsworth gathered his reins. This isn't over. Yes, Logan said, echoing his words from town. It is. For a tense moment, it seemed Ellsworth might refuse to back down. Then, with a curt nod to his men, he wheeled his horse around and rode away. Josephine released the breath she'd been holding. Logan's arm wrapped around her waist. "He'll be back," she whispered. "Let him try," Logan replied. "We'll be ready." But Harold Ellsworth never returned to the Triple Cross. 3 weeks later, word reached them that he'd been arrested in El Paso for land fraud. The Texas Rangers had indeed been investigating him, prompted not by Josephine's letter but by complaints from other victims. Life settled into a rhythm at the Triple Cross. Josephine learned to manage a ranch, to ride the boundaries, to help with calving. Logan taught her to shoot, though she prayed she'd never need the skill. At night in their bed, they made love and made plans. For cattle drives, for improvements to the ranch house, for children someday. The brand on Josephine's back faded with time, becoming just another scar, a reminder of survival rather than ownership. Sometimes, when Logan kissed it, she felt not pain but gratitude for escape, for freedom, for the man who had helped her reclaim herself. 1 year to the day after their wedding, Logan presented her with a gift papers transferring half ownership of the Triple Cross into her name. "It's already yours," he said when she protested. "Everything I have is yours." "But I wanted it legal and proper, so no one could ever question your right to be here." Josephine traced the document with trembling fingers. "I never thought I'd have this again, a home that's truly mine." Logan cupped her face in his calloused hands. "You have more than a home, Josephine O'Malley. You have a future." That night, as they lay together beneath a canopy of stars visible through their bedroom window, Josephine placed Logan's hand on her stomach. "We have a future," she corrected softly. "All three of us." Logan's eyes widened. "You mean?" Josephine nodded, smiling through happy tears. "The doctor confirmed it yesterday. Come spring, there'll be another O'Malley at the Triple Cross." Logan gathered her in his arms, laughing and crying all at once. As he covered her face with kisses, Josephine thought about the strange path that had led her here, from terror to triumph, from captivity to love. The brand that had marked her as property had instead become the first step on a journey to freedom. And the man who had saved her from being branded a second time had given her his name, his heart, and now a family. In the wild Arizona night, surrounded by the vast openness that had once frightened her but now felt like possibility, Josephine O'Malley finally felt complete. Not because she belonged to someone else, but because she had found where she belonged. And that made all the difference.